Welcome everyone to Sunday service here at Ananda Sacramento. My name is Nayaswami Pranaba and this is Nayaswami Jyoti. We also have Geeta and Gloria from Ananda Village and we'll be doing a special presentation after our service. But we are from Ananda Village, but we also have another special guest, and that's Nayaswami Uma from Ananda CC. So she'll be blessing with us at the end of the service. So let me read to you from Yogananda's book of Prayer Demands, Prayers on the Beads of Love. I tell my prayers on the beads of love, strung with my devotion. I direct them beyond all names, God, Spirit, Brahma, Christ, Shankara, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad. For all names are thine, and I shun no name, for I know thou dwellest in all forms. In thy cosmic dramas on the stage of time, and in thy myriad acting roles, thou hast assumed innumerable names. Behind them all, too, I know, thy one changeless name, eternal, conscious, self-existent bliss. Many times have I played with thee, many songs of thine have I sung. On the ocean bosom of thy eternal life, I've been nurtured by thee as a tiny drop of life. I remember thy warm touch through the centuries, whenever, feeling the chill of separation, I turned homeward to thee. Again in this daylight of remembrance, let me play with thee, let me sing thy songs. It's a wise thing, it's an important thing for all of us, whether we're seemingly new on this path in this lifetime, or we've had many decades on this spiritual journey, to step back from the immediacy of our lives that always is pressing in on us and really be able to see what is the meaning in what we're doing in life. Some people may have this as a striking epiphany. Others may just feel that it's the building of a long rhythm, a continuum of really tuning in deeper and deeper. But it is so easy to get caught in the whirling stuff part of life, and we can just get lost in it even if we've been on the path for a long time. I read a cartoon just a few days ago that was delightful. It's a scene where there's a manager sitting behind a desk and there's an employee standing in front of it, and the employee obviously has just given this report to the manager, and the manager says, "This is gobbledygook. What I wanted was mumbo jumbo." And that does happen for us in our life, is that we say, "Oh, I don't want that delusion, I want this delusion." But we're still in delusion. It's just that the nature of things that we get caught. I remember reading this story years ago about this man who, with his fellow buddies that would always go to the pub and on weekends, and he'd be the one that would drink all his friends under the table. He could outlast them. And then he had, I guess, his epiphany, and he had the feeling of living a more spiritual life, and so he joined a monastery. But as a monk, he ended up basically fasting his brother monks under the table. So we may change the scenery, but that's not the important part. It's that we change ourselves. And this is something that we all have been given the invitation to, is to really say, what is my life really about? Where am I going with this? And what's really trying to happen? It's so easy to get caught in the things that go well for us. And it's, of course, very easy to get caught in the things that don't go well for us. But either one, we're just getting caught by the energy around us that isn't productive. And if you think about that, what is being productive in life? Sometimes it isn't the obvious. That phrase, reading between the lines, refers to the subtleties that are there amidst the obvious. Don't always assume that when somebody says something that it's either fake news or real news. You have to come to the experience yourself. It's not a matter of just saying, yeah, I believe that. It's more, how do we take that belief into an experience that's very much our own? I read these funny commentaries or funny sayings from commentaries on tennis, people that broadcast the tennis matches. And the one commentator said, "It hasn't rained anymore since it last rained." Can you imagine saying that to a whole broadcast of people? Or the other one was great, that this other former tennis star was making a comment on a current tennis star saying, "My feeling is that either she will win today or she will lose." Well, so it is. That in life, it's not so much winning and losing, it's really more, where are we going with our lives? Because in each moment, we really have a choice, even if it seems that we're just sleeping and we don't have a choice. I was mentioning to Chaitanya, I stayed with Chaitanya last night, thank you very much, and I was saying that I had an odd dream. And typically I have that wherever I am when I travel, and I happen to travel a lot, so I get a lot of interesting dreams. But this one was that in the dream I was trying to help someone. And there were no specifics around what that help was. I think it was just, an energy that I was offering to someone. And they were not accepting it. I mean, this dream started reoccurring throughout the night. When you get that, it's just like the same theme is just, that's it. That's the movie for tonight kind of thing. And I woke up thinking, it's not my part to make sure that person is helped. My part is simply to be an open instrument for blessings as much as I can be. Whether those blessings land or not isn't my responsibility. And if we do take it as a responsibility, we tend to get trapped in the whirlpool of what I'm doing is significant for this other person. More than anything else, it's maybe significant for us. But the idea that we're offering creates a very different energy than saying, this person should do this. Now, of course, there are times when you actually do have an alignment with what the cosmic force is saying should happen, but you don't want to presume on that too much. You don't want to really assume that you've got the keys to this challenge for this person. It's more that, what is it that we can offer so that their energies become more receptive, more open to themselves making the choices that will really allow them to grow. Because otherwise, we face challenges or others face challenges, and we just can get bottomed out by it. The challenges seem like they're so real. And the reality, unfortunately, of these challenges seems to come as a force that is overwhelming us. And we're seeing it as a negative experience. Well, of course, in the moment, that's very real, that's a negative experience. But what we want to be able to do in not only our belief, but our faith, is, in a sense, transcend that, or bring enough energy where we're rising above that challenge, because the challenge may continue to remain with us. That, again, is not our responsibility to remove the challenge, but to elevate, to expand the energy, the consciousness, and our receptivity to that experience, that the challenge isn't overwhelming anymore. And what happens when we invest energy in that way, that challenge becomes a way of giving us energy, rather than sucking away our energy, drawing away our energy, because it's just overwhelmingly negative, seemingly. What we do is, as we really give to that experience and energy, and let that energy raise and rise up above the challenge, then we actually draw the energy from that challenge. But that doesn't mean the outward form necessarily change. It may, and often it does. But the dilemma for us is when it doesn't change. That outward condition, that outward situation, that person doesn't change. But we have that optimal condition to be changed. So we have this campaign that Ananda has been emphasizing for a while now, for the last couple of years, or year and a half, be the change. And what does that really mean? Beside the obvious that you're the change. It means this opening and allowing ourselves to be in the flow rather than specifics. We need to have specifics along the way, but it's not the specifics themselves that are the primary focus. They need to be focused so that we feel more the flow within that context. When you think of the term pranayama in the yoga teachings, often it's just related to as working with the breath, breathing exercises. And so that's a form of expressing and working with prana and pranayama. But it's not pranayama per se, it's a technique working with the flow of prana. Pranayama means that control of the life force, that control of the energy. But it includes the breath. But any technique is simply a way for us to align ourselves to be open to the flow of energy, which is what pranayama is about, and then to be in the magnetism, to be in the experience with that energy flow that is transformative. It isn't with limitation. It's transformative. It brings us into the true experience of our oneness in the highest consciousness. And we may not reach there in this moment, that we've put our efforts, our invitation, our investment of awareness in the right direction. And this can be puzzling, because for those that attend the purification ceremony that we have before our Sunday services at Ananda, at the very end, when you come up for the blessing, either kneeling or sitting before one of the ministers, at the end of that blessing, the minister says, "By the grace of our masters, you are free." Sometimes it doesn't quite feel that we're free still. Isn't it true? But we are. It's just that we haven't caught up to that freedom. So when that blessing is there, "By the grace of our masters, you are free," draw that as the deepest, the highest experience that's available that you are in that moment. Depending on karma, what's happening, again, you may not feel that test has been removed from your life in its entirety, but we can always not only just affirm, but have the experience that that is real to us in this moment, that we are free. We just need to deal with the stuff part. Isn't that nice? To make that clarity of understanding that we do experience that freedom, but there is the karmic remnants that seem to be pretty sticky in what we're doing. A few weeks ago, I took out from the library House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne. I don't know, have you all read A.A. Milne's Pooh books? When you're a tiny tot, no? He's losing ground in the American culture. But everyone's seen Pooh movies probably. But there's a scene when the character Tigger, who represents a very bouncy energy, they're trying to figure out his friends, like Pooh and Rabbit and Eeyore and Piglet, are trying to figure out what Tigger eats. And it's just a well-written part about this. I mean, believe me, it's very, very revealing of how we all are. But in this story, so they're trying to figure out what Tigger will eat. And he says he will eat everything, anything, until Pooh gives him honey. And he says, well, Tigger likes everything but honey. And then I think it's Rabbit feeds him thistles. And Tigger says, Tigger likes everything but honey and thistles. And he does this a number of times. And finally, I think they go to Kanga's house with Roo, the kangaroos, and he has some, Kanga feeds Roo some medicinal drink or something. And Roo doesn't really appreciate it as much of what we've experienced as children when we're forced some medicinal thing that tastes pretty weird to us. But anyways, Tigger comes in, and I forget the circumstance, but he takes it and he eats it, and he says, "Tigger likes this." But it's so reflective of how duality works, is that we have this impression, well, everything is fine except for, this person, this situation, this karma, it's fine. But everything else is great. And it's not a bad way to approach life, to affirm that, because we want to affirm the positive, the things that are helpful for us. But it comes always to a point where, what do we do with what is really important in our lives? And how do we find that? And so we are given the opportunity to just let this life be a tremendous gift of opening to possibilities, of what is real for us. And if we endeavor to do our part, and we do that with the deepest sincerity and the deepest opening, the deepest willingness, as the affirmation is for today, that we can really focus ourselves. So to feel that the divine is not somewhere where we're going to, but the divine is with us. To have that calm faith that God is with us now. And to bring the clarity of our awareness and the focus. What I mean by that is brought to an example by, for those that know Yogananda's energization exercise, it's a vital part of the spiritual journey that Yogananda gave to all of us, a technique of working with pranayama. But I think most of you, some of you, maybe a few of you, have experienced that you're kind of just haphazardly, unconsciously or subconsciously going through them. There's a part in the beginning where you go from a certain one and then on to the next one. Well, that certain one is repeated towards the end, except the one that's after it is different. But I've caught myself at the end going to the one after it in the beginning. And vice versa. In the beginning, I did this, and my wife Parvati, I was doing this one, and then I was doing this one, and she said, "Wait a minute, you missed about 35." But those things happen because we're not bringing focus and clarity. So I don't mean focus where you're driven by what's going on, where people just get sort of so anxious, uptight in doing things. What I mean by that is we're bringing the energy of awareness that's expansive in that focus, in that clarity. Because why? Because the divine can work through us more readily. Remember, the divine is already there, waiting to work through us, to flow through us, to guide us, to transform us. It's only our part that's been missing from that experience. So that's the way that we can open up to it. But also, I was thinking about this just recently, that if we can just remember to remember. Seems like an odd thing to say, isn't it? Remember to remember. Because when we can just feel that, this is why I'm here, then even those tough battles in life, they're just there to remind us. I remember reading in one of Paramahansa Yogananda's transcribed lectures in one of his books, where he mentions that it was so busy in his life when he was starting the work in Los Angeles and with Mother Center and all that, and it was consuming a lot of time. And he longed to be walking the banks of the Ganges River. That was more appealing to him. And then he prayed to Divine Mother and said, "Where are you? And what am I doing here? If my busyness is making me forget you, then let me go, release me. And the voice came to Yogananda's consciousness, but isn't it true that you're remembering that you're forgetting me? It was so touching when I first read that I thought, what a key, that you remember that you're forgetting me. Which means, of course, he's remembering all the time. I mean, there may be these little whirlpools that happen, and I think he was just telling that story more to create an understanding for us. But you've had those whirlpools, I betcha, where you do forget. But all you have to do is remember. Remember that you forgot. Not out of judgment, not out of a bias that you're not doing well, but out of an expectation that, of course, I'm with God. I'm always there in that experience, and God is always with me. And when we can grow in that nurturing relationship, then everything changes. You know, again, it's not as if the challenges disappear from our lives. They actually may increase. Doggone it, eh? But they increase with our openness and expansive awareness and energy to take them on. And I don't mean to take them on just to be there in battle, but actually to lift the energy where we succeed in overcoming that challenge and draw that energy from the challenge as a gain in our life. So everything becomes part of that momentum of our spiritual growth. Nothing is left behind. We just can convert everything into, rather than bitcoins, into cosmic consciousness. And when that happens, we're alive, even if we haven't reached that point. Because remember this poignancy of the reading from the Bhagavad Gita. It is probably the one of the several readings that just promises us, no matter how we do, God is with us. I mean, at the end of that reading of the Bhagavad Gita slokas, if none of these things that I've suggested work for you, then offer me your failure. How sweet. How real, though. Not just a poignancy that's sweet in an emotional way, but a poignancy, a sweetness that is powerful. It is life-transforming. I want to read you something from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam that's similar to those slokas from the Gita. So close your eyes. This is from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam Explained, Quatrain 64, the expanded meaning. Never allow your courage or your quick wit in the face of difficulties to become paralyzed. When unexpected problems overwhelm you with avalanching force, hie to the divine safety within. Hold aloft the banner of devotion and inner peace, and keep on struggling determinedly until you win through to victory. Never lose touch with your intuitive faith in God. Cast about constantly for the slenderest ray of light that might show you the way out of your predicament. God will never let you down if you firmly hold His hand. Let's take a moment of meditation.